welcome to Civil War Digital Digest. I'm Will. Well, it's a crisp winter day in the Detroit area, and the Historic Fort Wayne Coalition has welcomed us here to Historic Fort Wayne to shoot another episode for you. Today, we're going to talk about finding a connection to the Civil War era through seeds and gardening. Yeah, it may seem esoteric, but with more than half of the people living on farms in the United States during the Civil War, a kitchen garden is a regular way to feed yourself. We're having discussions in America today about food insecurity. It's certainly not a good situation to be in, but it's also not a new situation. If you grow up on a farm during the Civil War, you could be one bad weather year from trying to figure out where your next meal is. Let's talk about how that happens. During the Civil War, you have less food miles. Today, food travels long distances. During the Civil War, it might come from your backyard and come into your door and be a matter of 100 feet from where it was raised to where you have dinner. We can still do that today. We're going to take a look throughout the year at gardening as we have time. I'm blessed with the way my work is to be able to share this with you because my work is in urban Chicago and I've got a deck there. My home is in suburban Michigan and we have container boxes there. And I grew up on the farm that my grandmother was born on, and I have access to the garden there. So hopefully we'll be able to take a look at some of these skills in various regions so you don't feel left out. You don't say, hey, Will, you live in the country. It's easy for you to farm. Well, I'll do some of this stuff on a container box in the back porch on my deck in Chicago. We can go from there. For now, let's pick out some seeds. I've been gardening all heirlooms for a couple of years. Heirlooms today were the seeds that people used during the Civil War in many cases. We can talk about some of those, and let's talk about the resources that we're going to use. I have the Cultivator Volume 6, which is a magazine. This is a print-on-demand reprint from 1858. I have a kitchen gardening book, and remember, the kitchen garden is the garden that feeds your family. The fields might do a cash crop or do crops that you would sell, so we want to be on the kitchen garden today. And then really the gem for me is the fact that I've been able to secure copies of the American Agriculturalist magazine. It's a monthly publication and they're bound annually. This is the 1863 and this is the 1865 edition. Final primary source, we're going to use Field and Garden Vegetables of America by Fearing Burr. I found this book through a secondary source, the D. Landreth Seed Company catalog. They had been around since 1784, and unfortunately, the company finally closed about 2017. But their 2012 catalog is just a treasure trove to flip through, imagine what you could grow, and also learn where those particular varieties come from age-wise. Well, I used to love to buy from Landreth, but with them being closed, we still need to find seeds. Where do you do that? We're going to put some links below. Seed Savers, Baker Creek, Eden Brothers, Southern Exposure, and a few others. These are all companies that make their living selling organic and heirloom seeds to people, and it's the place you can find these if you know what you're looking for. We'll share what comes from where as we can to help you. Let's start talking in the garden in things that are really easy to grow and that are quick for an easy turnaround. I'm going to talk about lettuce and radishes. Of course, these will make a salad, and last year we did an episode about how to do a salad dressing out of a period recipe book. These will go great together. Radishes grow in about a month. Lettuce-wise, you could look at Cimarron, romaine, you could look at oak leaf, you could look at black seeded Simpson, or my favorite, Tom Thumb. All of these are heirloom varieties around before the Civil War and common in time and really tasty. Another vegetable our family loves to grow are cucumbers. The long green improved variety predates the Civil War and has grown excellent for us. We love it, whether slicing it fresh or on salads, making the recipe we showed here on the digest a few years back, or making pickles out of it. Another thing I like to grow are root vegetables. Because of my work traveling back and forth, I haven't had a chance to get into potatoes yet, but look forward to doing that. I do enjoy doing beets and parsnips. In the beet world, pre-Civil War, we have the Shigoya beet. What's really fun about this is once it comes out of the garden, you hack the top off and you've got a bullseye pattern in there of red and white. Now, when you either cook it or pickle it, and I've done both, the colors sort of bleed together so you don't hold it, but as a fresh beet, it's a really interesting look at it. Another root vegetable I love growing that was the first time last year are parsnips. A Civil War era and before variety is the hollow crown parsnip, and my goodness, that was delicious. My daughter and I loved growing them. They grew abundantly and really simple. And then we went to our friends from the Henry Ford Museum to a old Greenfield Village cookbook from their Eagle Tavern and made mashed parsnips, and it was fantastic. The final root vegetable we'll talk about today, you've got to have carrots. Long Orange Improved come around from the 1850s and are still available today. Delicious, easy to grow, but again, you need a little more depth. One thing I started on last year was growing cabbage. I didn't have a lot of success, but I learned an awful lot and hope to share some of that. Now, of course, from cabbage, you can make sauerkraut, and these are things that we handled working with Deb Reed from the Henry Ford in an episode that we did last year. I'm looking forward to taking what I learned late in the year and applying it early in the year this year so that I can get a little bit more out of it. Well, if you ask me, what's the favorite thing that you've grown so far? I'm going to tell you it's the beans. We've grown snap beans both at the house and at the farm last year, and it was a lot of fun. When we started growing the pole beans, we built a TP frame out of sticks and shoved them in the ground. At the base of each, we planted a hill of beans, and the runners ran up, and it was great, a very period use. Taking some guidance from something I saw at Greenfield Village at the Henry Ford childhood home, I also built a square frame and then used strings that the beans could run up and ran it along a straight line. I did that as well last year, and that worked really well. The really fun thing about it is not only did we feed our family with some of these beans, but last year I didn't buy beans. The beans last year came from my crop the year before that I dried and saved, and I'm going to do it again this year. So I'm now at a point where I'm not spending any money to raise beans in our garden. That's a really great thing about heirloom seeds is when you know what you're doing, you can save them. And I didn't follow every one of the steps and check the humidity and keep them in a certain moisture level. We have a basement. I dried them, I kept them in glass jars, and I had 100% germination rate. So if I can do this being in another state and not paying attention to it, it's not going to be that hard for you to learn too. This is a foundation. These are my favorites. There's more things that I want to get into and more things I want to share with you. If you're looking for a way to cut your food miles, if you're looking for a connection to history, or if you're just looking for some great tasting food, hang on for some of the extra episodes this year. You'll meet a lot of seeds from the era. You'll meet some gardening ideas, and you might even hear some stories about my mom's parents, my grandpa Stan and Val, who taught me an awful lot about this. Until then, hope this helps you find a small connection. Stay tuned. Come on along with us for the journey, and we'll see you in another episode of Civil War Digital Digest.